I tried acceptance and it got rid of my panic attacks and it made DPDR get to where it only happened every now and then. And I was like, dude, this is the cure. This is amazing. I love this. I was preaching the acceptance gospel. But guess what happened? Because I wasn't really in tune with my body and I wasn't listening to my body, which is interoception, the experience of the embodied self. I didn't have boundaries in life. I wasn't dealing with my emotions right. All of a sudden, it all just built up. And suddenly, there was no acceptance that would mitigate my symptoms. Welcome. So in this video, I'm going to be sharing 3 things that nobody told me about depersonalization and derealization that had I knew during my recovery, it would have made it a lot faster and a lot easier. So if you are suffering with depersonalization and derealization, this video is for you. I don't want you to have to go through unnecessary challenges that I went through. And if you don't know who I am, my name is Jordan Hardgrave. I created the Trauma Free Academy to help trauma sufferers heal and experience post-traumatic growth using the healing power of their own body. And if you are needing help with anything related to anxiety, panic attacks, depersonalization, realization, emotional numbness, maybe time feels distorted, your memory feels off, I would love to help you. So click that subscribe button, click like if this helps you, comment something below. Also, we have our brand new free masterclass, The 5 Shifts to Heal from Trauma, Anxiety, Panic, and Depersonalization, Realization. And at the end, there is an opportunity to apply to work with me and my team in our 12-week mentorship program. Our last meeting, we actually had a guy who came on there and he said, I am now on my 3rd day of completely being free of derealization. And honestly, he was kind of shocked because he was very skeptical if what we do would be able to help him. And he's just seeing amazing results. And so many people in our mentorship program are seeing incredible results. You got to do the work and don't apply unless you're ready to make this your #1 priority. But there will be a link to apply at the end of that 5 Shifts to Heal from Trauma masterclass. Okay, let's go ahead and get into this. The first thing, and make sure to watch this whole video because I'm going to have to break some things down, is nobody told me that depersonalization and derealization are trauma coping mechanisms. Now, hold on a second. Whenever I say the word trauma, you instantly are going to be flooded with all kinds of misunderstanding because trauma is highly misunderstood. You're going to immediately go through your past and you're going to look for traumatic events, but not just traumatic events. You're going to look for a very standard list of traumatic events, such as being in a car accident, losing a loved one, going to war, natural disasters, right? That's what we've been told trauma is. We've been told that it's an event, but not only an event, a very specific type of event, a very standard list of events. But there's a problem at the outset, which is that a lot of people that experience a car accident or go to war or are in natural disasters or lose loved ones don't walk away traumatized. The statistics bear that out. So that tells us that it's not the event itself that's traumatizing. What determines if something is traumatizing is based on, number one, does that person have a history of trauma? Because if you have a history of trauma, then the neural pathways in your brain are already wired to quickly activate a trauma response whenever you're confronted with stress. This is assuming that you haven't gone through the process of rewiring your brain. Number two, do they have the presence of tools to mitigate stress? A lot of people aren't taught how to mitigate stress. And so if you take 2 people, and let's say they're in a natural disaster, one person doesn't have a history of trauma and they have the presence of powerful tools to mitigate stress, and the other person does have a history of trauma and they don't have those tools to mitigate stress, you can have one person that walks away traumatized and the other person that doesn't. 2 completely different responses to the same exact scenario because the effects of the situation are based on the individual, not the event itself. Now, there are some exceptions to this. I mean, obviously, there are certain things that I would say are probably overwhelming for everybody. And that's really what trauma is. It's a state of overwhelming stress, just so you know. But what we're typically told about trauma is it's just not accurate. The statistics don't bear it out. But here's what I want to do is I want to extend this even further and say that you can reach a state of overwhelming stress due to virtually unlimited factors. I have people all the time that come to me and it was a bad drug experience. I would say probably between 30%, 35, maybe even 40% of the people that come to me that start to experience a state of traumatic stress, the primary thing that caused it, or at least it was the tipping point, which I'm going to talk about complex trauma here in a second, was a bad marijuana experience. Or sometimes it was dimethyltryptamine, so DMT. Sometimes it was ecstasy. Sometimes it was acid. Sometimes it was other types of drugs. And they had a panic attack, or just for whatever reason, they reached a state of nervous system overwhelm, and then depersonalization-derealization and other trauma symptoms kick in. But a bad drug experience is not on the standard list of traumatic events. And so nobody thinks that this is trauma. And so they think that their brain's broken and that these symptoms are the problem, which we're going to talk about in a second, that they're not the problem. And then they don't really get the help that they need. So just to give you an example, I've had to be very careful whenever I tell people what I do for a living. If I tell people that I help with trauma, the very first thing that they're going to ask me is, do I help military people, active military or veterans? Because that's technically like the first understanding of trauma that happened was we believed that it only affected war soldiers, and they used to call it shell shock. Now, our understanding of trauma has evolved, and technically now we understand that it can affect anybody, but there's still a very traditional understanding that it either just affects soldiers or it may affect people in like natural disasters, car accidents, losing a loved one, but we don't understand that trauma can happen to people due to an unthinkable amount of circumstances. A bad breakup. We get people all the time. They go through a bad breakup and they reach a state of nervous system overwhelm. People can also just be visualizing negative outcomes, and all of a sudden they reach a state of nervous system overwhelm. In fact, that's what happened to me the second time that I reached a state of nervous system overwhelm and DPDR kicked in. I was sitting and visualizing myself basically having financial collapse. I was really stressed about money. And then all of a sudden, bam, depersonalization-derealization kicked in. Now, I want to pivot for a second and say that it wasn't just that. And this is why you need to know about complex trauma. Complex trauma is not just one big bad event that causes a state of nervous system overwhelm. Complex trauma is where there's a series of stressors and adversity that builds up over a period of time. Not always a long period of time, but a lot of times it is a long period of time. Sometimes it goes back to people's childhood. One of the first things that I ask people if they work with us is, was your mom or dad anxious? Or did they have pretty significant trauma? Because we now know that trauma can be inherited genetically. And for some people, they began life with a genetic predisposition towards anxiety and trauma. But definitely your childhood can play a huge factor. You don't have to have a rough childhood to end up in a state of nervous system overwhelm. And this is another traditional thing that people think is I tell them that depersonalization-derealization are trauma coping mechanisms, and they think, well, my childhood was fine. You can have a perfect childhood. And later on in life, you start to have stress build up, like pouring glass in a bottle of water. And then there's usually some sort of tipping point, whether it's a bad drug experience or losing your job or, marriage issues or whatever. And then all of a sudden, bam, you hit a state of nervous system overwhelm. And then DPDR, maybe emotional numbness, memory issues, time feels distorted, all these trauma symptoms kick in, which may or may not include anxiety, by the way. There's 2 states of trauma. But all that I'm trying to tell you is that there's a lot of misunderstanding about trauma. And so people think, oh, well, this can't be from trauma because I haven't been through any of these traumatic events. Trauma is not an event. We've already proven that. It's a state of nervous system overwhelm, and it can happen due to an unthinkable amount of circumstances. But for most people, especially the people that work with me, it's almost always complex trauma. Meaning that for years and years and years, stress has been building up, and they didn't listen to their body, and they started to live in their head. They're checked out into the past, they're checked out into the future, they're daydreaming all the time, or they dissociate into Netflix or Call of Duty or Fortnite. Or for me, it was World of Warcraft. Yeah, I'll just own it. I am a huge gamer nerd, and I'm not ashamed of it. I played EverQuest for a long time, and if you know what EverQuest is, you're my hero. It came out in 1999. But, I was just looking to escape, and that's why I looked to marijuana in 2008, which was the straw that broke the camel's back, is because my life was full of stress. My parents went through a terrible divorce. I was being severely bullied. I had no idea where I was going in life. I had just gone through a really bad breakup in high school, and I wanted to just feel better, and that's why I looked to the marijuana. But little did I know that my body was building up with all kinds of tension and energy and emotion that I did not know how to deal with. I didn't have proper boundaries in life. I didn't have a healthy focus in life. And the conclusion to all that was that my nervous system thought that I was being eaten by a lion. And whenever I had the panic attack due to the bad marijuana experience and I felt trapped and overwhelmed, it was the bad marijuana experience coupled with all the tension, energy, and emotion and fatigue that had built up in my body that led to a state of nervous system overwhelm. My brain thought that I was dying, right? And part of a trauma response, it's also called the freeze response, is to make you very numb and disconnected so that if a lion is eating you, you don't feel it, right? So anyway, that was a very long way of saying that these symptoms are there because you have a lot of things happening in your life and in your body that are communicating to your nervous system that you're about to be eaten by a lion. There's so much stress and fatigue in your body and so much chaos in your life, which could be something called the nervous system war zone. Maybe you're continually in an environment that is highly chaotic, highly punitive, highly aggressive, highly unpredictable, or highly unstable. Maybe you're a yes person and you just don't know how to say no and you're just constantly giving your energy out to everybody and you're not thinking about yourself. Maybe you're at a job where you're being overworked. Maybe you're in a relationship that's abusive. In fact, the longer that I do this, the more that I realize that toxic relationships, romantic and non, are a huge factor as to why people end up reaching a state of nervous system overwhelm. Because you're just continually in this environment where you don't feel safe because you never know what's going to happen. So anyway, but you've got all these things in your life and in your body that are communicating to your nervous system that you're about to be eaten by a lion. And the symptoms are not the problem, which leads me to number 2. I wish that somebody had told me that depersonalization-derealization are not the problem. When you experience depersonalization and derealization, which is where you feel out of body, that's depersonalization, and then you feel detached from the material world, everything feels dreamlike and fake, there's like a wall of glass between you and reality. When you don't have this education, what else are you going to conclude than the symptoms are the problem? They're terrifying. I kid you not. I've been through some stuff in life, okay? I'm not sitting here trying to say that I have the worst story ever and woe is me or anything like that. But I did have a very disproportionately traumatic life for many years. I've been through some stuff. I've been through stuff that I will never even be able to talk with you just because it's very private and I just don't want to talk about it. But I've been to some really low places before, okay? And yet, with everything that I've been through in my life, I kid you not, depersonalization-derealization were the most terrifying thing that I have ever been through in my entire life. I've been really afraid before. Nothing was as terrifying as depersonalization-derealization. And whenever you are experiencing those symptoms and you don't know why they're there, and everybody's got a different opinion. You're getting online, and there's all these different opinions. Some people say it's a spiritual awakening. Other people say, oh, it's just anxiety. By the way, it's definitely not just anxiety. And anybody who tells you that these symptoms are a symptom of anxiety, they have not done their research. It doesn't mean they're bad people. There's a lot of good people that say that, but it's not true. This is a completely different branch of the nervous system, and the symptoms are just much more severe than anxiety. I'm not trying to downplay anxiety, especially if you're having panic attacks. That's absolutely terrifying. But once you get into a trauma state and DPDR kicks in and other trauma symptoms kick in, it's a whole nother level. It's a whole different ballgame, okay? And yet, if you get online and nobody really seems to understand this, maybe you go to your doctor and you go to a therapist, and as amazing as they are and well-meaning as they are, maybe they don't understand the symptoms. That's probably 75% of the time they're not really going to know much about these symptoms. I actually did a poll one time on my YouTube channel. And then you get on the forums and you see all these people that have been suffering for years and years and years, and you're just like, oh my gosh, that's going to be me. And then you buy different programs. Like, we get people that apply to our program all the time, and we ask them, what have you tried before this? And I'm telling you guys, it is sad what people have to go through before they actually get help. I mean, they usually will have tried, 5 to 10 pretty major things, different methodologies, different things, especially the distraction stuff, which, by the way, almost every application that we get, people have tried this distraction stuff. And I'm telling you, it can't work because you're not actually dealing with your body. Distraction is running. It's actually literally opposite of what you want to do. In order to heal this, you need to get back into your body, and you need to befriend your body, and you need to release the buildup of tension, energy, and emotion and fatigue. And you also need to face the situations in your life and maybe make some major adjustments and set up some major boundaries. Maybe walk away from some toxic or abusive people. Learn to say no to people whenever you don't have the energy and all kinds of stuff. If you're just constantly trying to distract and you're checked out, like, you're not doing anything. And we get people all the time. They're like, hey, I wish I would have found you first, because I just spent a year trying to distract my mind 24/7. And it's a complete waste of their time. But anyway, acceptance, there's a whole movement built on acceptance. And I want to be very clear. I actually love that. I love acceptance. I have no problem with acceptance. My problem is when you make acceptance the cure-all. In fact, we just had a guy who joined our program, and he was in a very expensive program, and he's like, they pretty much just tell you, just accept. And he actually said they were quite rude, which is terrible. I'm like, okay, well, that's not going to help you. But we've had a number of people that have been told that all you got to do is just accept. And the power of acceptance is it can start to eliminate resistance, especially mental resistance. But what about the physical resistance? Right? With all this tension that's built up in your body, you need to release that. And then you've also got all this emotion. You've got all this adrenaline that needs to be released. I'm not against acceptance. I'm against whenever it's propagated that acceptance is the cure-all. Right? I tried acceptance, and it got rid of my panic attacks, and it made DPDR get to where it only happened every now and then. And I was like, dude, this is the cure. This is amazing. I love this. I was preaching the acceptance gospel. But guess what happened? Because I wasn't really in tune with my body, and I wasn't listening to my body, which is interoception, the experience of the embodied self. I didn't have boundaries in life. I wasn't dealing with my emotions right. All of a sudden, it all just built up. And suddenly, there was no acceptance that would mitigate my symptoms, and there was no distraction technique that worked. In fact, distraction never worked for me. And I had to come face to face with my body, and I had to come face to face with the reality that my life was full of a bunch of things that I had to fix. There was no more running. And was it hard? Oh my gosh, it was hard. Simple in concept, but very difficult in execution. But was it worth it? You better believe it was worth it. Oh my gosh. I'm now able to wake up in the morning and look forward to my day. I get to focus on my dreams in life, and I get to be present again. I can actually just sit with my family and be present. I can focus on my dreams in life instead of always just trying to make it through the day. You better believe it's worth it. But not everybody's willing to pay that price. In fact, about 80% of people aren't. There's the 80-20 rule. 80% of people are not willing to pay the price. They're going to just keep looking for the quick fix and the hamster wheel method. And I love you, but that is not going to work. I'm looking for that 20% that are ready to make this their number one priority. Number 3, nobody ever told me that if you're willing to deal with the root, which are things happening in your body and things happening in your life, the symptoms can go away permanently, and they can stay away. Now, you're going to have to maintain your results, but you can permanently become symptom-free. In fact, I remember I used to watch video after video after video, and I was just looking for somebody that would tell me that you could get rid of these symptoms and stay free of the symptoms. I remember there was this one guy, it was like a 40-minute video on YouTube, And he was just talking about his experience with symptoms, and I was just sitting really tense because it was super hard to watch long videos whenever I was going through DPDR. And I remember he said, like, yeah, every now and then the symptoms still come back, but I know how to deal with them now. And I'm like, no, where are these people? And that's one reason why I've started to do recovery testimonials for you guys, because I want you to see that people are beating this. In fact, we got 2 coaches that are a part of our RISE program that the reason that they're coaches is because they went through our program and they're now symptom free. And now they're helping other people become symptom free too. And I've actually got 2 recovery interviews that I'm going to be posting very soon for you guys. People that made this their priority and they actually dealt with what was happening in their body and in their life. Did it take time? Did it take months? Yeah. But now both of these people have been symptom free for one of them over a year, the other over 2 years. You can do this. It's possible to heal. There is hope. All right. No matter what Reddit says, no matter what the forums say, no matter what the person told you that's struggling for years and years and years, and maybe they're so discouraged they don't want to believe that anybody else can recover. They're not bad people, but they're just very hurt. It doesn't matter. You can beat this, but you got to want it more than anything else. Okay. If this helped you, click like. Again, subscribe. Join the Fearless family. Now we're the trauma-free family. I used to say fearless family. We're technically still fearless, but join the trauma-free fearless family. My dogs are barking. I think my wife just got home. And yeah, subscribe. Yeah, we're getting just a few subscribers. It's starting to pick up, actually. I'm starting to be more consistent with videos. And I was looking at it today, and it was like maybe 5 a day, 10 a day. Hey, I'm thankful for that. But yeah, subscribe. I've got a lot of cool videos in the pipeline. You're gonna benefit a lot from this channel. So I think that's it. Peace. Have a good day.